Got it, so just restart.
Should I start again?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted just to announce that there's going to be a wholesale. Oh, no, wrong meeting. I didn't say that. I'm just kidding. All right, we'll call to order the Scio Township Board of Appeals regular meeting for June 15th, 2023. Mr. Walsh, would you call the roll?
Off here. Culbertson.
Here.
Walsh here. Shields.
Here.
Angus here. Mr. Ramey is absent.
All right, very good. Ms. Ramey told us earlier she would not be able to appear since she's unavailable. Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda, or does anybody want to add or change anything?
So moved. Adoption of the agenda is posted.
Support.
Moved by Ms. Culbertson, supported by Mr. Kangas to adopt the agenda. Mr. Wallace, would you call the roll?
Off.
Yes.
Culbertson.
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shields.
Yes.
Kangas. Yes.
Very good. Next item on the agenda is swearing in. Will the people who will be testifying here today, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is communications report.
We swear in anyone online
Yeah.
who wants to speak, or should we do that later?
No one has their hand raised.
Well, they wouldn't. We'll do it a little later.
Okay. Sorry for the
If
interruption.
someone would remind me in
Yep.
case I forget. Next item on the agenda is communications or correspondence. I have none. Does anybody else have anything? All right. Next item on the agenda is public hearing. The public hearing is for variance number 23003. Peter and Jenny Huntley, Turkey Run, 1093 West Delhi, H-08-15-400-005 to allow the construction of a new private road with a 10-foot wetback setback rather than a required 30-foot wetland setback pursuant to section 36-342 sub F sub 2 of the regulations. Let me just briefly go through the public hearing procedure. First thing we'll do is call on the petitioner or the petitioner's representatives to present statements in support of the appeal along with any supporting evidence. Next, the petitioner, his or her agent or attorney may present his or her case, including presenting witnesses on his or her behalf, after which members of the ZBA shall report on any site inspection and any conversations with the petitioner which they may have had. At that point, members of the public who support the petitioner can speak and any correspondence read, after which time members of the public who oppose the petitioner may speak and correspondence, if any, will be read. After which time, as the chairperson, I may permit the petitioner a rebuttal within limits set. After which time the hearing will be closed or continued, and then the ZBA will deliberate and possibly take action. That's the general gist of the procedure. So who will be speaking first on behalf of the applicant?
I'll speak first. Joseph Maynard with Washington Engineering Company.
Go ahead, Mr. Maynard.
Okay. Where did I get this?
I think you can share.
Okay, so I've assumed that we should probably start out a little further here for you. This is the property that we're talking about. On the property, there is an existing home in the back here where Peter and Jenny currently live. They came through the township previously this year and had their property rezoned so that they could potentially, work on a split of the property, which is right here. So that gives them their home in the back here and a second buildable property at this location. We do have health department approval for the home and then drain field. So we know it's a viable home. As I zoom in to this, kind of see the existing driveway is.
By the record, for the record, Mr. Maynard, what you're referring to is part of the set of drawings which have already been submitted, and which are part of the record here.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So I'm kind of giving you that overview, starting outside, working my way in here.
You're specifically looking at which sheet? And division. And
think
the
it's-
reason I'm asking you to do this is just for the record, so
Yeah, no problem.
so it's clear. Number 4. Sheet number 4, does that sound right?
Yes, sheet number 4.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Maynard.
So currently, the driveway exists along the northern property line. And that driveway already cuts through the wetland buffer that exists on site, which is the pink line that you see on the screen. That existing driveway is only about 8 to 10 foot wide at the most, and is currently not adequate for fire department access to the home as it is. What we're seeking is a variance to be able to widen the road to 16 feet in the wetland buffer. We worked closely with the fire department. This is the actual previously approved plan by the planning commission, with a note from the planning commission that we talked to the fire department about potentially reducing the width of the driveway to 16 feet all the way through the wetland buffer. We have reached out to the fire chief and we sent him a drawing showing the driveway at 16 foot through that wetland buffer. And he's agreed that that is acceptable. I have a copy of the email here. I think Jan, you got a copy of it as well. So if you need it, I can.
What are we talking about here?
It came before the planning commission and.
Right. Well, I'm just asking for identification of what it is
Yeah.
we're talking. I don't have it.
Right,
It's not part of our records.
but that's because it just happened.
Just happened
Okay,
yesterday.
what is it exactly?
So,
Is it a letter from the fire chief?
yeah, so I got a letter from the fire chief.
Okay, do you have a copy
Yes, I do.
for us?
Yep.
All right, why don't, Ms. Walsh, can we mark that exhibit A? And make it part of the record here? And why don't, Mr. Walsh, could I ask you?
I'm gonna give you this too. This is the actual drawing that I sent to the fire department.
Okay.
Indicating the area.
I'll mark it as exhibit D.
Yes.
Thank
Check
you.
that as well. So,
Before we do that, can we just, Ms. Walsh, if you, all right, I'll read it into the record. Exhibit A is a printout of, looks like an email from Andrew Hood at the township to Mr. Maynard. Copied to Ms. Culbertson and Mr. Huntley, Peter Huntley. And the original question by Mr. Maynard posed is as follows. Chief Hood, per our brief conversation, I am ceding you, I think it means sending you, the attached file to see if this would be acceptable to reduce the road width,
Yes.
should be width, WIDTH, on this project to 16 feet at the entrance. As this goes, it would be basically a 16-foot wide road till you pass the wetland buffer in the back, where the roadway is 22 feet wide with a T turnaround. This is a request by the Scio Township Planning Commission to help reduce the impact of the project on the wetland buffer. But we need to be sure this reduction will allow for safe and efficient life safety needs for the property owners. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns on this proposed change to the plans. Sincerely, Joseph K. Maynard, PE, Washington Engineering. And Mr. Hood replied, yes, comma, no problem with that change. Both emails were June 14th. So, and then attached to that is marked as Exhibit B, this is the, Mr. Maynard, the attachment that you sent to Chief Hood.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And you answered a question I had about a T at the end. I didn't see that clearly on the stuff that we had. And I keep these documents.
Yes, you may. Yep.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, can you read, please? Okay, with that in mind, continue on, Mr. Mayor.
T-turnaround is actually right here at the end. So the fire truck would be able to pull up, back into the T-turnaround, and then exit. This is directly for the fire code dimensions that they provide.
Okay, so that's going to be an additional to what's there now.
Yes, so the existing driveway is the 8 to 10 foot wide driveway you see right here underneath everything. So that existing driveway will go away. This wide
Okay.
turnaround will be the proposed new driveway.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And this work is outside of the wetland buffer, so. As part of the project, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but we are removing some existing trees and a few invasive trees within the wetland buffer area. Our calculations for a 20% allowable removal. We meet that 20% allowable removal without mitigation, but we are planning to plant some trees anyways, as kind of a buffer between the two homes. 17 evergreen trees will actually be planted and maybe planted already between the two properties there. So, and I'm gonna let Jerry Sosnowski here, our landscape and wetland expert, kind of go through the details of what's there now and what the proposed plan is to mitigate this wetland buffer area.
Okay. I think it's relevant, just so we're all on the same page though. Although this, I think is relevant to our discussion. For the ZBA though, we're really only talking about the widening of the existing driveway and, encroachment into the allowable setback. So with that in mind. Go ahead.
Okay, if you could go to those photos. Just to give you some perspective on this, I've been observing this wetland for a few years now for various reasons. And so it's not like I walked out there one day and made a decision. These pictures are of the wetland. This happens to be last summer. And that top picture it's called Joe Pye weed. And the one underneath it is bee balm. And these are just native species. They're naturally occurring. There's many, many more sedges and other forbs and ferns. And my overall opinion of this wetland is it's a high quality. The state refers to them as scrub shrub wetlands, but it's very intact, hasn't been disrupted. The boundaries are very definite, both from soil, hydrology, and the vegetation. If you can move up a little bit.
Who actually delineated the wetland?
I did. That's one of the,
Originally, you mean?
yeah. Yeah,
When
so,
was it delineated as wetland?
was it 2 years ago now? Okay.
Yeah, it does show up. as-
August of 2022.
On the wetland maps, yeah, so it's been recognized as a wetland, but you're required if you're gonna do construction to actually delineate the boundaries because the wetland maps we have are general in nature.
Don't mind me, go ahead.
So, like I said, even though officially for this job, I delineated the boundary August of 2022, I'd been out to that site over the past 3 years for other reasons, adjacent properties. And anyway, this next picture looks, well, if you go back to the other one. So there's a prairie in the foreground, and along the back, those trees, that's the buffer. It's very distinct, and it's all buckthorn, and buckthorn is an invasive species. This is
Which direction are we looking?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's good.
So that picture is looking north towards the driveway. And then if you scroll down, that's just a close-up. In that plant in front is young Joe Pye weed, and behind it is skunk cabbage. And all the trees are that invasive species of buckthorn. And I mean all trees. And where you see the shadow go up, that's the top of the existing driveway. So you can see there's real distinct linear edge of the wetland, and the buffer is filled with invasives. So if you move up, so we'll be removing those trees. They're all, maybe 2-inch diameter woody plants. You're not removing big trees, 12, 18-inch. They're not there. And these next two pictures are simply pictures of tall grass prairie. And what they call that is a wet mesic mix. And the species there are the upland version of wetland plants. And that's how the edge of that buffer would be restored, which would make it much more stable. And so buffers, I'll just explain that when it comes to like state regulation of wetlands, the way you determine them is with two things: hydric soils and hydrology. The plant material, they use it just to prove that the other two issues are correct, but it's not statutorily necessary to have wetland plants in a wetland. So the point being that the hydrology and the hydric soils are there. And in the upland or buffer, they're not there. And buffers are, it's just a way of keeping development away from intruding into a wetland. And because the climatic changes from year to year, sometimes these wetlands grow. They'll have a real wet year and their edges will expand. And then other years will be real dry and they'll really dissipate in the smaller areas. What's unique about this wetland is the upland areas are very definite. Some wetlands, there's not too much gradient change between the wetland and what would be in the buffer. But in this case, the wetlands here and the buffer area is sloped up. There's no way water's gonna sit in there. And right now, the vegetation in that buffer is probably doing more harm to the wetland than good, because that species I mentioned, the buckthorn, they're a profuse seed that they produce. And all that drops in the wetland, and sooner or later, without management, those trees get into the wetland, destroy all the native species. So from this perspective, this is a unique situation. I mean, each wetland is unique, but this one's unique in the sense that that buffer is not real. It's certainly in its current condition, it's not protecting that wetland. But it's good to have the buffer so nobody at any point does encroach in the actual wetland boundary itself. So by restoring it with this tall grass, mesic prairie mix, you're going to have herbaceous plants that complement the wetland herbaceous plants. So I think it's from an ecological perspective, I'm not judging it from ordinance and buffers and setbacks. From an ecological standpoint, it's a very good solution to a very nice environment. And the first time, the last thing I'll say about is the first time I ever came to this property, which was 3 years ago, I was just amazed to see how intact that wetland was. And I see a lot of these things and I see a lot of development. I was thinking to myself, well, I wonder how long this one will last. But fortunately, then it will last.
Has the planning commission required all of this?
This was a part of the presentation they made to the planning commission at our last meeting.
Well, I understand the presentation, but did the planning commission vote to say, yeah, you can do it with the understanding that you're gonna have to do all the seeding?
That's a part of the plan.
So it's all in there, okay.
And in minimizing the dimension of the road. Yeah. That was a condition.
Okay. Does anybody know how it came about that this driveway got put so close to that property line?
I gotta imagine as old as this home is.
What, 74, 79?
Yeah, I give it 79.
My house is older.
Well, I gotta imagine, over the development over time, culverts get put in, they get clogged. I gotta imagine this is probably a sense where the wetlands just grown over time. And it's pushed its way.
I guess
in.
my question is, why is it's like, a foot or two away from the property, the driveway?
Yeah.
How'd that happen? Does anybody know? Do we have any information on this? I'm just curious. I don't think I think we're dealing with what we got.
Yeah.
I think it's also relevant.
Probably to keep it away from the wetland.
Well, that's my guess, but even so, back then, the zoning ordinance was in effect when this house was built. So there must have been setbacks for that, for a driveway. That was my question, I guess.
I guess, can a drive be in a side setback?
Yes, a driveway can be in a side setback. The driveway placement in most townships is dictated by the road commission. They will dictate where the driveway placement will go, due to sight lines on the road, adjacent driveways, et cetera, so.
One observation I had was that is the high ground on that property.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And if it was just purely there because there's no other place to put it, I guess that was my guess. But
And driveways can be adjacent to the property line. You can't grade, you have to meet the grade at the end of at the edge of the property.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Now, you talk about the removal of those, the small trees. But just so we all know this, I mean, there are some significantly sized trees gonna have to be removed, right?
Towards the interior of the property, there's some bigger trees. And
Well, it's right next to the driveway. That's what I'm saying. You're gonna expand that driveway, you get some big trees are gonna go.
yeah, there are some elms, American elm.
Yeah, they're, I didn't measure them, but they're big.
We've got them mapped and.
I saw that.
That's
It is what it is. I mean, if it has to be done, but I'm just saying we ought to, when we're talking about removal of trees, let's talk about the removal of all the trees.
yeah.
And those are the big ones.
Yeah.
There's at least two, or if not three, that I saw when I was out there.
Yeah, those are
They're
nice.
big. Yeah, they really are. But, you know, there really, as far as I know, there's no other way around doing it, right?
Doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Question. Can you talk a little bit about also the stormwater? Because right now there's no stormwater management.
Oh, right.
And if you wanna, because I think what I'm interested in is, you know, how is this making that situation better than it currently is? So you talked about the restoration of the buffer and, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't bring the grading plan, but,
Would be in
Is
the
that
package.
7?
yeah,
I think
it's in your
it's
packet, yeah.
I think it's on 7, yeah.
Need to start the public hearing.
I'm sorry.
Need to start. Did you start the public hearing?
Yeah. Yes. We're in it.
Yeah, no, I know, we're in it. I didn't think you started.
Oh, I think so. If I didn't, we'll retroactively start it.
All right.
So it's page 7?
Well, page 5 has the grading plan. Let's say 7 has the details of the small pond. So what we're providing is a sediment basin for all of the house development and roadway prior to treat any sediment of the roadway before it enters the wetland buffer.
And now there isn't any storm management at all.
Correct, there's no storm management on this property at all.
And just for the record, Mr. Maynard, there is, and we're talking around it, it's obviously the basics of the whole thing, but just for the record, there is no other way you could put a driveway in there.
There is no other, I mean, we could put the driveway on the south and cut through the whole wetland, but I mean,
Well, no,
this is the best location.
with the wetland in place, there's really no
And-
reasonable way to put something else in there.
Correct, and the road commission would require us to center it with the driveway that's across the street as well, because of offset driveway distances.
Of course.
Yeah. So they have a code for that as far as offset driveway distances, so.
Just for the record, when it comes to regulations by the state, the only way the state of Michigan would allow going through a wetland for a driveway is if it didn't exceed 200 linear feet. So if it goes beyond that,
How many feet is this driveway?
Well, we're not going through the wetland, but yeah.
if you were to, well, it's beyond that.
Well, they'll just as a matter.
It's beyond that 200 feet. So the bottom line is to try to get a permit from the state of Michigan to go across wetland. The wetland's too large.
Well, it'll take a long time,
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah, the drawing shows that the depth of the lot is over 500 feet.
Right, and I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
Okay, questions for the petitioner?
The one I had was, the current road, has it been under water at all from the wetland?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had the same question. I didn't see anywhere where it was obvious.
Yeah, and the owner hasn't said anything to us about having water issues over the road, but we are gonna replace the culvert in his driveway. Through water flow, but.
Well, so the height right now between, let's say, right now, the wetland and the road is how much?
I think we're maybe, some of these, it's about a foot and a half.
It's not too much.
Our proposal will, basically, we're looking at adding additional gravel to the existing road bed.
An awful lot of gravel is gonna have to go in there. This is kind of a major league effort to put in a new driveway.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
a
more
class, it's a class C road.
Yeah,
So it has, you have to have that base and. yeah.
exactly, but, yeah, and I understand that, it's just, it's a lot of work.
8 inches of stone.
Well, you're designing it for the fire truck, not the car.
No,
So-
I get that, I get that.
They're pretty beastly.
No ladder truck's gonna have.
Wait, if it's a 2-story house, you need a ladder truck.
No, we're not going there. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Actually, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Went out there the first time and got a feel for the property and the issues with the size and the narrowness there. And my question is about mitigation. You've addressed beautifully. But then I, reread the document and you mentioned that there are 6 units or 6 lots that are comparable. And I went back and looked and drove a couple of driveways, and I don't see how they're similar.
Are you referring to the, Mr. Shields, are you referring to the,
To the response to the questions.
the supplemental
Is there
information?
any other property in your neighborhood that has the same or
Right.
similar conditions?
Well, I didn't see 6, I thought I saw 3.
No, there's
Yeah,
3,
there's
no, there's 6.
Where are they?
There's 4 on
Where are the
Della
other?
and
There's
2
the
on
columns.
Crags.
Oh, because they included Pratt
Yeah, I'm
and,
sorry, yes.
and,
Right.
down
Yeah, there's
West Delhi.
six.
Yeah, so when I went down one of the Pratt ones, I looked at it and said, God, it looks like they have a second house on the left. They didn't, it was another building. But I wondered if you looked at just making a left on the driveway rather than having to expand it. I guess you gotta expand it anyway.
Well, in fairness, Mr. Maynard didn't provide this document, did he?
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure which document. it was.
There's almost always supplemental information that the petitioner has to submit for a zoning variance, and this is kind of a standard form. And what we're addressing here is the question asked of the petitioner, is there any other property in your neighborhood that has the same or similar conditions? If so, identify by street address, and there are 6 addresses here, 4 of them on West Delhi and 2 of them on Pratt. And Mr. Huntley, who signed it, or Jenny Huntley, who I presume is his wife, is that correct? Is Jenny his wife, Mr. Mayor?
I believe so, but I don't know for certain.
Well, in any event, they signed it, and it's slightly unfair to ask you something that they signed. However, you know, I had the same question. I don't know what they're talking
No, I
about.
don't either.
So,
The only thing I could think of is those properties all had wetlands on them.
that's my guess.
That's not the same as developing
Yeah,
a property in a wetlands area.
yeah, I think so. That's why I kind of
I
discounted
think
that
4 of them were
information.
long driveways, so there was a similarity. But, you know, it's apples and oranges and tangerines, it was just hard to make sense of it all.
Yeah,
It's one of our questions, so.
yeah, no, it's a legitimate question. I had the same
And
one.
you don't know what the evaluation process was of those
Exactly.
properties, right? Yeah.
Oh, no,
That's
we
why it
have
would have
no
been nice to
idea.
have them here to answer that.
So with all due respect to the applicant, then I think we kind of ignored that because it's not backed up by any information. That's the way I would look at it, I guess. But in any event, we can go from there. Any other questions?
Right, that's it.
Mr. Kangas, did you have any other questions? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm good.
Mr. Walsh?
I was looking at other parts of the ordinance package that talks about potential for shared driveway, because in the packet wasn't put forward that the expansion was needed from a public safety standpoint.
Yes, that is one of the things.
Because I was looking at it, there is, based on deviations, the possibility of a shared driveway, but since from a public safety, to put an extra house, they have to, that shoots the deviation process down. So I was looking at that as an alternative.
Yeah,
Again, I appreciate your information, actually, it was very informative, thank you. But I'm back looking at our criteria, and we've been told that providing the evidence of the hardship is the responsibility of the applicant. I understand the engineering, I understand the want. But I'm wondering, get to this
We're
later.
getting into
Yeah,
deliberation
right.
as
No,
opposed to
thank you.
the,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
let's-
stop, sorry.
yeah, we have a couple things to go through first.
do you have any, I know you've visited this before at the Planning Commission. Do you have any additional questions now?
No, they addressed
Okay.
questions. Oh, and Laura, did you have a?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I just want to note that shared driveways are not permitted in Scio Township. So a private road, Class C private road would be the only option in this
Thank you.
case.
I just was reading through.
Yep,
Appreciate that, thanks.
no problem.
That takes care of that one.
Yep.
There would still be a road, a road agreement.
Yeah.
So. Anything further from the applicant?
The only thing I can emphasize is, the existing roadway does not provide adequate life safety to the existing home. It needs to be widened in order to provide proper access.
Right,
So-
but that begs the question as to if it needs it, why does it actually require an additional lot split in another house? If it's gonna need it anyway.
I mean, homeowners have the right to split the property, so.
Right is one thing, but variance really is a slightly different story.
Yeah, maybe we should go on with the public hearing before
Well, we
we
can, but I
talk
just, I
about
wanted to,
the, yeah.
Yeah, no,
we will continue it. I just wanted to give the Mr. Mayor another opportunity if he so desires. I would ask for all the members of the ZBA to report on any site inspection, any conversations with the petitioner, Mr. Kangas. Ms. Shields, you've been out there?
Twice.
Okay. Any conversations with the petitioner? Mr. Walsh?
I was out there yesterday, no conversations.
Ms.
I
Culbertson?
was out there, didn't see or have any conversations with anyone.
Yeah, I drove past it, last week and then, just the other day, I went over there and, I called up Mr. Huntley and, asked if I'd come over and he said, fine. He actually met me there. And, we had a conversation, on a number of different things. He, in no particular order, he said that he didn't know who put in the driveway or when. He'd been there 40 years, I guess, something like that. We did look at the big trees are gonna have to be taken out, which is too bad if this gets approved. But, and I understand that. We also talked about the wetland a little bit and the delineation of it. I remember Mr. Huntley also made a comment that he complimented Scio Township and how efficient the government was. We didn't go much further than that.
Watching our meetings.
And then we had a couple other things, but that's primarily it. And he showed me where, the new driveway would be. And that's really about all I can remember at the moment. Okay, anybody else have any more questions of the petitioner?
We asked the public.
I'm going to go to that next. Okay, are there any members attending by Zoom who support the petitioner and wish to speak or to forward correspondence? Any hands raised?
Yes, Rob Pattinson.
Say again?
Rob Pattinson will speak.
Mr. Pattinson, go ahead. Mr. Pattinson, could I ask you to raise your right hand? We can't see it, but I'm going to take it for granted that you are doing so. Could you, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will testify the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Mr. Pattinson? We got a burp there, but I didn't hear anything. Yes, if you could speak up, you're down a little bit on the audio. It's not really hearing you very well.
He says I do.
Oh, thank you. Okay, go ahead. Well, I can address a couple of things. Come on in, Mr. Huntley, how are you? Let the record reflect Mr. Huntley just appeared in person. Why is the plan? Was it a matter of timing as far as the planning commission meeting and ZBA?
Yeah, I mean, typically, I think people tend to go to the planning commission first and then the ZBA second. And in this particular month, they lined up like they did. And you can go to the ZBA before you go to planning commission. Yeah.
No, I understand. I was unaware of anything other than pure coincidence, I suppose. There was-
And oftentimes they're on different weeks even. It's just,
Well, sure,
it's just
yeah.
the agenda. So you can come before the zoning board of appeals for a variance at any point in time. They can't, however, even if planning commission approves, they can't build it unless they get a variance from, so the
Right.
approval is conditioned on the variance.
Yeah, and Ms. Patterson, as is stated in the documents in the package, the only question here for decision by ZBA is whether to allow variance of the setback for a driveway. We're trying to take everything into account when we ask the questions, but and there is always some overlap between whatever issues the planning commission has, the ZBA has in some respects. But they are different. They're definitely two different things.
Bodies, yeah.
And I can't speak to whatever, why is it in front of the planning commission and what happened there? I don't know personally.
Well, you have to approve, we have to approve private roads. Yeah, Laura, did you wanna?
I just wanted to add, in the ordinance, it does say that if you know you need a variance, the planning commission shall review the plan and determine the layout and other features prior to going to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
And just to add, in this particular case, I think the applicant applied for both the private road and the variance at the same time. I think they were turned in relatively at the same time. So the timing of review is, approximately the same to get on a planning commission meeting and a zoning board of appeals meeting. It's just how it played out, like Jan said.
And I guess we're a little far afield from where we should be on this, Ms. Patterson, but I'll ask you whether that answers your questions. Anybody else on Zoom who wishes to speak in support of the petitioner?
There are no other hands raised.
No other hands raised?
No other hands raised.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who on Zoom who oppose the petitioner who wish to speak? Raise your hand on Zoom. There's nobody, and the reason I say Zoom is because there's nobody else here in the audience here. Anybody with a hand raised?
No.
Okay. And as I noted before, Mr. Huntley just appeared in person and we did start promptly at 7 o'clock, Mr. Huntley. And
I apologize.
that's all right.
Can I ask my question back to this?
To what?
To the question I asked about those 6 properties and why they are.
Oh, yeah, we can go back and we can actually allow rebuttal to the petitioner. So I think we could do that technically and to ask Mr. Huntley that question specifically. If Mr. Huntley wishes to speak, you don't really have to, your representatives already have. But there was just 1 or 2 open questions here. And so if you wish to speak, I'd ask you to do 2 things for me. You don't have to, but if you do wish to speak, could you sign the form appropriately? And then I'll swear you in. Would you like to speak a little bit?
You don't have to. I have not heard the presentation of
other members of our team. I'm on this occasion, on previous occasions, I have been extremely impressed by the way that they have covered the topic very completely and thoroughly. So I'm very confident that they have done so at this time also.
Right, but the question is, do you want to speak at all? Because there was a question here for you that you might be able to answer that they couldn't. Could you sign in then, and then I'll swear you in?
Yes.
You already signed in? Could I ask you to stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you. Mr. Shields had a question for you with reference to, I know what he was going to ask because it came up before. You filed you filed in support of your petition a supplemental information. By the way, is Jenny Huntley your wife?
Yes.
Okay. That clears up another question that came up. You and your wife signed a supplemental information. And one of the questions that were asked in that was whether there are any other properties in your neighborhood that had the same or similar conditions. And if so, to identify them by street address. And you listed 6 addresses here. Do you understand what I'm talking about? It's line G at the bottom.
I don't understand what similar conditions refers to.
Well, that was basically the question we had too. Let me direct your attention in this regard, Mr. Huntley. It's the burden of proof of you, the petitioner, to persuade the Zoning Board of Appeals that your variance is something we should allow. And one of the questions we ask of someone like you is, are there any other properties that you're aware of that have the same problems that your property has that requires this variance, in your opinion? You put down 6 addresses there. What was the purpose of putting down those addresses? What conditions are we talking about?
As far as I can remember, this is the result of having looked at the maps available, which indicate the extent of wetlands in that general area north of Pratt Road and either side of West Delhi Road.
Okay.
And not having done any particular analysis, I just had the impression that there was some conflict between the extent of the wetlands as on the maps that I was considering at that time, and the development of real estate.
And the what?
Development of real estate, of properties in that area. And the impression I received just by looking at that map was that there was some give and take in order that the development could go forward.
Mr. Shields, is that responsive to?
As responsive as it can be, I think.
Okay. Is there anything else that you and I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Huntley, because you don't know what happened before, but is there anything else that you would like to say at this point in support of your request?
Well, it has been pointed out to me that the consideration of wetlands should be not only a matter of quantity, but also quality. And buffer areas tend to be areas which do not receive adequate rainfall year after year in order that they develop the full quality of the wetlands. In other words, what I'm saying is that by using some buffer zone for other purposes, such as a road, it means that we're sacrificing a certain number of square feet, but we're not really sacrificing productive wetland. So I understand that for administrative purposes, it's necessary to take measures that are can be applied to many different circumstances, and square feet serves that purpose very well. But for someone who is situated on the spot and is looking at the quality of the land, that is another consideration which to him is rather important. So I'm saying that if we do have to sacrifice some of that buffer zone, it's not a huge loss to the ecology.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the members of the zoning board have any questions of Mr. Humbley based upon the matters he just brought up? I don't want to go back and rehash everything, but just on this alone. Okay. Then I would solicit a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walsh to close the public hearing, supported by Mr. Kangas. Mr. Walsh can call the roll.
757, Both,
Yes.
Culbertson,
Yes.
Walsh, yes, Shields,
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing is now closed and the ZBA will deliberate. Well, Ms. Culbertson, I mean, you've looked at this twice now.
3 times because there was a rezoning.
Oh, that's right, there was actually a rezoning.
I think what, I think in this matter, there is, the purpose of the buffer comes into play. And in our zoning ordinance, the 36-30, section 36-340 talks about the purpose of this ordinance. And it says the regulations of this article are intended to achieve the mutually compatible objectives of reasonable use of land and protection of the township's natural resources and features. And it talks about then, the stormwater management and other aspects of the wetlands and the purpose of the wetland buffer, which is to protect the wetland from the impacts of development. And when I look at the purpose of this particular ordinance, I see what and the way wetlands are dealt with, and it references the state law, is about mitigation. And in this case, the construction is actually improving the condition of the wetland and further protects the wetland. So in my mind, even though it's a variance to a buffer, it isn't strictly a dimensional variance because there are qualitative aspects of the protection of the natural resources that come into play. And so that's how I'm sort of differentiating it from a simple dimensional variance.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Walsh, you've got your hands ringing.
Some of these that come in, it's fairly straightforward to get an opinion. I've been bouncing back and forth on this one from the time I got it. Just in the meeting, my opinion keeps swinging. I appreciate calling out the intent. I hadn't considered that. I hadn't known about the safety aspect. Then I also know the property due north has the same type of driveway. And if we start approving widening just for the safety aspect, that gets beyond what we're supposed to be doing. So I put that aside, and I guess I'm leaning back to the intent of the ordinance, the presentation about what is going to be done that might be beneficial. And I think that's leaning me one way, but I'm still conflicted. I'm absent a compelling argument. And we talked about the things that we have to approve. There hasn't been a compelling that this is denial of something that someone else enjoys. So I'm looking to be convinced one way or the other from the rest of the committee members.
Let me stop you just a minute. Laura, there was something came up on the screen a moment ago. What was that?
It's a
anything?
chat and we don't recognize chats
Okay.
here.
Okay, well, the way I kind of looked at it is that it's really a long, narrow driveway. And you gotta keep in mind, there's no fire trucks gonna get down there. And so I understand that part of it. And I guess it's just gotta be widened. And I say that even knowing that these really beautiful trees are gonna have to go. And there's no other way, no way around it. I mean, they're gonna have to go if you're gonna do anything with the driveway, and something has to be done with the driveway, so. And I understand that. And normally I would be very sensitive to trying to look very carefully when someone's trying to get a relief from a wetland setback under, just because I want to do it is not a reason. And really the only thing before us, when it really comes down to it, is if you're going to have to redo the driveway, you're going to have to encroach into that setback. There's just no other way around it. And that's all that we're being asked for today.
Right.
We're not here really to say, we are not here to say you can put another house there. That's not what's being asked of us. So the way I look at it is you're gonna have to do it anyway, so I think you have to, I'm looking at it with blinders on maybe a little bit, but I think I have to.
That actually addresses the substantial property right. I mean, as far as say, a substantial property right is the right to, have
Emergency services.
emergency services.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. And that's the way, and you don't, I guess I didn't really appreciate from looking at the drawings. Drawings are very good, by the way, but the point is that you can't just look at the drawings and decide. I mean, I went down there and looked at it, doggone it. I mean, you have to do something. And that's my simplistic way of looking at it. To do it, to allow another house to be built there is not what's really the heart of the issue, I don't think. And I'm saying that, you know, because I like to think that I really look and try to give a lot of credit to the zoning ordinances, the way that they're done. There's reasons for them. A lot of different reasons for each single one. And whether you can put another house in there, not really what we're being asked to do in the ZBA. So, and you do need to do some, and those trees are gonna have to go, and I mean, those are really nice looking trees. But, you know, they're gone. The rest of it, kind of, I think it's kind of out of our hands in a way. And I don't, if this came to us under other circumstances, you know, that, hey, I just wanna get into this wetback setback because I wanna have this road go this way. It's better because I gotta put up a swing set on the other side, you know, that sort of thing. And I just want it. I don't think that's what that's what the issue is here. That's the way I'm thinking, Mr. Walsh.
No, I appreciate that. That to me sounds, and as noted by the presentation, there are going to be steps to actually make things better. That's a public benefit, even on a piece of private property. Say that as a beekeeper, I appreciate all the wetlands that are in the area.
Mr. Shields, you haven't really said what you're thinking.
You haven't given me a chance.
Fire away.
We're moving around this way. So I've struggled over a couple, three things. One is that we have been scrupulous, really, other than one situation in paying great attention to setbacks and really not allowing them. But this is a very special circumstance. And the safety issue is one that I had not thought of, but it clearly is important. And what I was really concerned about is my questions was what modifications you guys have made. It's wonderful. It's going to be, you've improved it. And then the stormwater. So again, you've improved things. So that addresses one set of concerns. The second one I struggled with was the substantial property right. And I was thinking it's not a substantial property right to sell a parcel to put in a second home, but you've changed my mind on that. It really is about safety.
Well,
So
About the road itself.
About the
It's
road,
not about
yeah.
anything else on the property. It's just about
exactly right.
the road.
Exactly right. So the two things I've struggled with.
And just make clear, Laura, I mean, redoing the driveway, is it possible without putting in a private road?
Yes, but
But-
the driveway is already in the wetland buffer.
Right, and it's inadequate,
And so, yes,
so,
any expansion of the drive
yeah,
is
it's
within
gonna
that
do the
buffer.
same thing.
So the two issues I've spent the last few days battling around in my brain, I think are settled.
Mr. Kangas, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think everybody has really expressed what my thoughts were. I think the safety was number one when I was looking at this right away. And I have been involved in two other pathways or driveways that had to go through the variances and that. And both times they made it primarily because of safety to the existing, parcels that were there. And then secondly, just making it a better safety road. So that was number one. Then number two was the wetland mitigation or at least not mitigation, but the steps that they're making to improve it versus just letting it sit there was, to me, important. And it came out more in the presentation than just looking at the documents.
Okay. Somebody want to bring a motion?
I'll go ahead and give it a shot. Unless you were going to.
Go ahead.
I just seen it. So in the matter of variance number 23003.
Can I stop you for a second before you actually put that motion? And I apologize for
That's
the
okay.
interruption.
Please.
And I wanted to emphasize this to everybody. Remember that under the rules of procedure, under the rules of procedure, the structure of a motion, either to allow or disallow a particular request for variance, really should start out with a set of facts upon which the motion is based. And I know that that's sometimes a little bit difficult, particularly when there's a lot of things involved. And I think we can incorporate, all the various facts that are contained in the documents that we have. But really just sort of as a reminder, we really should start with a set of facts and then enunciate the motion. You follow what I'm saying here?
I do.
Does everybody? And it's may not, well, in any event, that's, and I refer specifically to 4.1, our rules of procedure 4.10 sub A sub 1, which says the motions dealing with an appeal or variance concerning the zoning board shall be stated with the following parts or stated as two motions. Number one, a list of facts pertinent to making the decision on the matter structured as a finding of fact on the case. And then go on to the motion from there. Fire away, Mr. Shields.
We can help. Well, we can help with the findings of fact, I think.
I think I have the findings of fact woven in here.
Fire away.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. In the matter of variance number 23003, Peter and Jenny Huntley, Turkey Run at 1093 West Delhi Road, paren H-08-15-400-005, request to allow, and the setback is now 16 feet, correct?
No, it's 10 foot.
10 feet, that's still 10 foot, okay. 10-foot setback in accordance with section 36-342, paren F, paren 2 of the Scio Township Codified Zoning Ordinance. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable to the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of uses in the same district, including the existing of a wetland on both the property as well as a neighboring property to the north that do not allow an alternative route to the proposed site of the second lot. That such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property right possessed by other properties in the same zone or vicinity. The proposed changes will improve the safety, which is a substantial right. The granting of such variance or modification will be materially detrimental to the public welfare and materially injurious to.
Well, could you restate that,
Yes,
please?
yes. The granting of such variance or modification will not be, I had it written, but didn't put the caret in. Materially detrimental to the public welfare and materially injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or district in which the property is located. The relevant ordinances were written to establish a minimum buffer to preserve and protect plant species, animals, and the water table. The proposed mitigation plan will improve the buffer boundary and the quality of the wetland. They will also improve the storm water management. The granting of such a variance will not adversely affect the purpose of the objectives of the master plan. Building a second property, actually, no, this is relevant now, sorry. We will improve, I'm sorry, it does, I'm sorry, that's right. Okay, let me start again. The granting of such a variance will not adversely affect the purpose or objectives of the master plan. Building a second property on the lot is consistent with the master plan's goal of increasing low-density residential usage in the township. The circumstances or conditions upon which the variance is based do not result from the actions of the applicant or his predecessors in title, and there are other options. That's it. That was it. Okay, I think that's a starting point anyway.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's finish the sentence. I think you kind of dropped it at the very end.
Okay.
And now I've distracted myself, but hold on.
Would it be helpful if I repeat it or?
Just the end. I was trying,
I think it's, it isn't, it resulting from the actions of the applicant or the predecessors entitled due to the
hold on,
specific
hold on,
location.
hold
of
on,
the
that's-
wetland.
hold on. It's
Yeah.
Mr. Walsh's motion. So,
Shields.
or excuse me, Mr. Shields' motion. So at the end, you were saying that the circumstances or conditions upon which the variance is based do not result from the actions of the applicant or his predecessors in title.
And then I think we return to the top, that due to the exceptional circumstances of the property.
Well, no, that was part of the first part of your motion, right?
Right. But I was returning to it to kind of close the loop, but I guess I shouldn't do that.
Okay, with a little bit of don't take it the wrong way, a little choppiness.
Yeah.
Mr. Shields has brought a motion to approve the variance. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would, there are two suggestions, that the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the purpose or the objectives of the master plan of the township. Rather than talking about the addition of the house, I would say the master plan of the township reinforces the protection of wetlands. And we're actually improving the condition of this wetland.
So are you suggesting that Mr. Shields reword his motion to omit a reference to the second residence?
Yes.
Mr. Shields, that's up to you.
No, that's exactly what it should be.
Okay, then with that correction to the motion, there's a motion to approve on the floor. Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Shields, supported by Ms. Culberson to approve the variance. Any discussion?
Can I ask one question?
Sure,
We
go
were
ahead.
talking about statement of facts. I was wondering if, have we included in it, because I didn't hear it and may not, that the existing driveway is already in the buffer.
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you did that. Mr. Shields is correct that in part, his statement of facts is incorporated in various parts of his motion. in the future, to make it easier, it's probably to do a statement of facts at the beginning of a motion, but I agree that it's sufficiently in there, in my opinion. But yes, Mr. Walsh makes a good point there.
Say in the beginning that the exceptional circumstances are conditions.
Yeah.
One of those conditions is that the existing driveway is in the buffer for the wetlands.
Yes. Would that be an agreeable amendment to your motion, Mr. Shields? Okay.
It would be added to number 1.
Yes. And in addition to your motion, would you accept a friendly amendment to also add to the statement of facts at the beginning that particularly under the exceptional circumstances that the driveway in its existing state is it's inadequate to allow safety equipment to access the existing house. Is that agreeable to you, Mr. Shields?
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion? Okay, call the roll, Mr. Walsh.
Off.
Yes.
Culbertson.
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shields.
Yes.
Angus. Yes.
Okay, we've granted the request for the variance. If you hold on just a moment, I'm going to hand you, Mr. Huntley, a signed decision in that regard. Could you just stand by?
Thank you.
And we have duplicate signed copies to Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Good luck, Mr. Huntley. All right,
Thank you.
moving on to the next item on the agenda, old business. I see from the minutes of the last meeting, we were supposed to have some old business with regards to possible change in the rules of procedure with regards to adjournments and whatnot. But it didn't come up, so we'll try to remember to put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Any other old business? All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for May 18th, 2023. Are there any changes, corrections?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we corrected Vice Chair Ramey's name throughout.
She's now Randy.
Yeah.
What is it? It's,
But it,
Name's
oh, I see, yeah.
it's misspelled, not every time, but almost every time.
I see one on page 1 at the bottom.
Yeah, there are 2 on page 2, I believe, that I spotted.
Yeah, proper spelling is R-A-I-M.
Yeah, and the one on page 3.
Hold on just a second, let me just
Sorry.
find it too here. I see one on the first line on page 2.
And then further down in the last paragraph.
Yep, last paragraph, same, page 2. Okay,
I kind of like the name.
Page 3.
page 3 right in the middle.
Yeah. And I see two of them in page 4, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet point, and then right before the motion.
Yes, I see that. Right before the motion, yes, the line before the actual
Yeah,
motion.
and then on page 5, right at the top. I think I got them all. I don't know.
Sounds good.
I think there was one on, did you get the one bottom 4 in the roll call?
The roll call's fine. RAIMI is fine. It's just,
IMI?
RAIMI.
that's correct, yeah.
All right.
Any other corrections or changes or anything?
Content was good.
Yeah.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
So move to approve the minutes as amended.
Moved by Ms. Culberson to approve the minutes as amended, seconded by Mr. Kangas. Mr. Walsh, can you call the roll?
Goff,
Yes.
Culberson,
Yes.
Walsh, yes, Shields,
Yes,
Kangas.
Yes.
Okay, very good. In the minutes, by the way, there's a indication that a notice of decision of the Board of Appeals will be mailed to the applicant on the top of page 5. And apparently, we don't think that was done.
I have no idea. We will find out.
Find out. And then perhaps it's moot, but we can ask Ms. Ramey. Can I ask you, Mr. Walsh, to contact Ms. Ramey to ask whether that was done? And if not, if we have to do it, we can do it at the next meeting. The next meeting that she's here, if it's required. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Public comment. Citizens wishing to address the zoning board of appeals on matters which are not on the public hearing portion of the agenda or seek information on any other matters. Such oral presentation shall be limited to 3 minutes, except the representative or spokesperson of an organization shall have 5 minutes to address the board. Are there any citizens wishing to address the zoning board of appeals via Zoom? There's nobody here
Yes,
in the room.
Rob Pattinson.
Mr. Pattinson, go ahead. Probably something should be addressed to trustees. But thank you, Mr. Patterson. Anyone else with a hand raised on Zoom?
No.
Okay, next item of business is other business information report on Planning Commission liaison.
I think everyone received an invitation to the next planning commission. We're gonna do more of a working session. We don't have any projects on. We're gonna review, and I'll send everyone a copy of it too, or a link to a copy of it. The environmental sustainability plan will be a part of that agenda, as well, looking at sort of the PUD, updating the PUD ordinance and looking at planning in the Jackson Road corridor sewer district. So they're all related quite a bit. So that we've invited people from other commissions and boards to that. Then the other thing we might be interested in is the variance that was denied for the 4-story hotel. They have had a pre-application meeting, and I believe, Laura, I wasn't at that pre-application meeting, but are they coming back as a PUD?
I wasn't at that meeting either.
But that's
assume
what
that's-
I'm assuming is what they're doing, so. Anyway, I thought you might be interested in
Thank you. So unless anybody's got something else to say, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
that. Support.
Moved by Mr. Walsh, supported by Ms. Culberson to adjourn. Call the roll, Mr. Walsh.
Paul.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Walsh, yes. Shields.
Yes.
Angus.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned.
Recording stopped.